Navigate around the Explore California site a little bit and notice how every single page contains the same common sections, such as the header, footer, and even the left sidebar section of the page. This is a great thing as it gives a consistent look and feel throughout the site. However, it's really painful to change each instance of those common elements across all pages in the site. Luckily, ASP.NET Core MVC allows us to define special Razor pages, whose sole purpose it is to define this common layout and render content from individual pages inside of this layout. These types of Razor pages are referred to as layouts, and they're a great candidate to live in that shared views folder we saw ASP.NET Core MVC looking for earlier. To demonstrate how they work, let's create the new shared folder under the views folder. Then, I'll make a copy of our index.cshtml page into this new share folder and rename it _layout.cshtml. Now, there's nothing special about the underscore or the layout in this file name. Those are just naming standards that I and a lot of other people like to use to indicate that this file is a layout and not a full page. Next, open up the newly renamed layout file, copy the contents of the main content section to your clipboard to save them for later, and replace them with this snippet of code, @renderBody. This is a C# method call that tells Razor to take the body of the view that has been rendered and put it at this location in the page. With this layout in place, we can go back to our index.cshtml page and modify it to take advantage of this new shared layout. To do that, simply replace all of the content in this file with these couple of lines and only the content that we wish to display on this page. These beginning lines are more C# code that is setting the layout property of the view to tell ASP.NET Core MVC that this view should be wrapped in the layout named _layout. How does ASP.NET Core find that layout? Well, you probably guessed, the file named _layout.cshtml in the shared views folder. Now, when we run the site and refresh the page, it looks exactly the same, only this time, the main content is getting rendered by the index view, and the layout of the page is getting rendered from the layout view. Likewise, I can convert my blog controller actions to return views rather than the hard-coded content they're returning now. First, I'll update the controller actions so that they make a call to the view method to return view action results. Then, I'll add the corresponding index view in the blog view folder and populate it with some content. With these changes in place, I can run the site again and see that my blog page now shows this new view. This approach is great if you only have one section of your application that you want to change on each page, but what if you had multiple sections of content? For example, right now the content in the header of this application has some text and a link, but what if we wanted to control the content of that header on each page? Luckily, we're not just restricted to one section. MVC also offers another method named renderSection that allows you to define additional sections of content that pages may control. To see it in action, I'll copy the content that's currently in the action call element and replace it with a call to renderSection. This method has one required parameter, the name of the section, and I'll call this one header. Then, in order to use this section, I can go to the views that use this layout and tell Razor what content I want to render in this section by using the section keyword, followed by the name of the section, just like this. Note that it's not really important where in the view I define this section. It could be at the beginning like this, it could be at the end, or really anywhere else. Now when I run the homepage, I see that this content still shows just like it did before. However, if I hit another view that uses this layout, I get an error. This is MVC letting me know that I must define a section if I'm going to use this layout. The other alternative I have to defining a section here is to use the second optional parameter to the renderSection method. This is a Boolean value which indicates whether views are required to define this section or not. So, to make this error go away, I'll just set this value to false to indicate that it's not a required section. Now when I run my site, I can visit my blog page and see that the page still renders even though I haven't defined this section. But now, what if what I really want to do is define some default content in the layout, and then allow views to override that content, but only when they want to? In order to do that, I can use the isSectionDefine method in my layout like this. Now, when I navigate to pages that don't define this header section, they'll just get the default content. But on pages that do define this header content, we'll show that custom content instead. Now that I've shown you how to render basic Razor views with layouts, let's get a little more advanced.